So 1 o'clock, she'll sign it, she'll chat to you, and what an inspiration, and not in the sort of cute way, but actually very profoundly. I think there's a lot to unpack from what Melati was talking about around the power of these ecosystems, the island ecosystem, and bringing those lessons to a greater and broader society, if you like. And I think the book covers a lot of that. And we're going to now talk a little bit more. We're running a little bit late, so we're going to move quickly. So the first thing I need to tell you is I have 2 panelists, not 3. So Michael, who was coming from Africa, I woke up, it's a nightmare email this morning. My flight was cancelled, so he's not here. So I have, so he sends his apologies, and it's a shame, but he'll be talking later on in the schedule at Change Now tomorrow. But I have 2 amazing people to continue this conversation, and I'm going to welcome to the stage, please, Hannah Jones and Karen Flug. Please give them a round of applause. We're going to sit here. Welcome, welcome. So I'm hoping your names and titles will go up behind us in a second, but they will. But welcome to the stage here at Change Now. Thank you very much. You've both been to Change Now quite a few times, I think, and are big supporters, big partners. We're going to continue this conversation around spotlighting change makers, shaping thriving impact ecosystems. But just to start with, I'd like each of you just to give us a bit of context. Imagine that we don't know what you do and what your business does and why you're here. And please just give an introduction for a couple of minutes. So Hannah, I'll start with you if I may.
Sure, and thank you so much. And it's just lovely to be here again at Change Now. And it's kind of overwhelming to see how many people are coming, which gives me enormous optimism about the world that we're creating together. So the Earthshot Prize was founded by Prince William, the Prince of Wales, with 2 objectives in mind based on some experiences he was having in 2019. And they're worth going into because it describes why we exist. And the first was that he kept visiting solutions that were working, but were never being scaled or replicated. And his question to his team was, maybe we don't have so much of an innovation problem, what we have is a speed to scale problem. Because if all of these innovations were scaled, the world would be a much better place. And the second, which he really felt deeply in 2019, was he was early in seeing the rise in what we now call climate anxiety, climate anger, and he felt really strongly that for young people, we needed to change the narrative, the environmental narrative, which is laden with doom and gloom and denial, and start to inject what we call urgent optimism based on these stories of solutions that are actually making an impact. And that really describes our birth 4 years ago. And since then, we've been on a crazy journey of growth to search the world for innovators, find them, select cohorts of 15 finalists a year, and from there, award 5 Earthshot Prizes worth £1 million each. And we look for solutions across oceans and nature, zero waste, clean air, and climate change. And we prioritize looking for solutions that are female-led, indigenous-led, come from what we call the global south. We look for solutions that prove the case that green equals growth and green equals jobs. And we look for solutions that could be scaled and replicated. And then what we do is we convene investors, we convene philanthropists through our platform called Launchpad, and we really try to turbocharge not just the few finalists, but actually larger and larger cohorts. And the final thing I'll say is, one of the big things we saw was that however amazing our finalists were, they actually still needed so much support, and it wasn't just about the money. And from that, we birthed a fellowship program where we give them a year of support that's really been teaching all of us what it means and what it takes to take your idea to prototype and to scale. And none of that could be done without an incredible alliance of over 800 partners who help us lift and carry solutions to scale.
Thank you, Hannah. Karen.
Great, and also fantastic to be here and super inspiring and amazing, beautiful location, of course, as well. And we're actually, Inca Group are one of the global alliance partners for Earthshot, so we've been with Earthshot from the start, and it's really exciting to see how it's evolved as well. For those that don't know, Inca Group is the largest IKEA retailer in the world, so we have over 400 stores around the world in 31 countries. We also have an investments arm, which I can talk a little bit more about later as well, which we increasingly use for sustainable investments. And as a CSO, that's absolutely amazing that we have that at our disposal. And when we talk about financing and unlocking what we need to do to move forward, it's an absolute pleasure to be able to have that part of our work. But the part everybody knows us for, IKEA, is actually, we have a very big vision and a big dream. We've been around for 80 years, and our founder from Sweden really wanted to create a better everyday life for the many people. And we do that via affordable home furnishing solutions, of course, that you know us for. But what is a better everyday life? It needs to be a more sustainable life at home. And we see that as being under threat with what's happening with, obviously, the climate change crisis, but also rising inequality around the world as well. So we want to use our size and scale as a force for good. We definitely do not have all the answers yet, and we definitely like to collaborate with businesses. This is an area where competition doesn't apply. We want to come together and share and generate ideas, big and small, NGOs, brilliant partners like Earthshot, policymakers, local communities on the ground as well. We want to be good neighbours when we move into an area too.
Amazing, thank you. And Hannah, when you've built something incredible. I remember the first Earthshot, and it was like no one had really heard of it, and it's like, what are these guys doing? And now, you're a global phenomenon, and congratulations. But how have you seen that kind of ecosystem develop? And also, how do you find these innovators? And you talk maybe a bit about the nominating program and kind of what you've observed over that 5-year period of, and how this has sort of catalyzed the change and got to where you are. And you're halfway through the 10 years, I think, aren't you? So, so talk a little bit about how you've done that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just fascinating. So we have official nominators. So we have a community of over 400 official nominators around the world who have been invited to be nominators because of their deep knowledge of their sector, their region, the specific kind of focus area. And as a result, we have this incredible diversity of nominations. And one of my favorite things to do is to imagine, and maybe you can imagine with me, this growing data bank of nominations that we have. Because yes, it's great the people that have won it or are finalists, and I think there might be some in the room, but actually, what's really great is to look at these thousands and thousands of nominations, and every year this grows, and the richness and the diversity and the representation in itself, those are beacons of hope around the world. And so what it began to trigger for us with our kind of momentum that we had was, wow, there's this unseen movement happening, and it's leaderless, and it's fragmented, and it's not supported enough, but it is a movement of people that are every day choosing to take their time and their talent and their creativity and fix the world's problems one solution at a time. And how do we get behind that and give that ecosystem more support as a collective? It needs spotlighting. It absolutely needs more resources. It needs more fellowships and accelerators and incubators to help you on that journey. And it needs funders and brave companies to come in and say, you know what, I'm going to take a bet on helping you scale and use my supply chain or my procurement team to help you do that. And so that's really taught us a huge amount about what's happening and the potential that the world has. Now, the issue, and this is where the mid-decade piece becomes so important, we very early on adopted the Higher Ambition Coalition's view of the world, which is by 2030, we want to see a 40% or more reduction in carbon. We want to see 30% of oceans and nature and water protected. And absolutely, we're a long way from that. And we think that, yes, policy matters, but frankly, is going far too slowly for my liking. I'll say that. So we're doubling down on supporting innovators, cracking the code on solutions that can go to scale, and then really encouraging through our convening the brave companies, the brave investors and philanthropists, and saying, de-risk this, take the first bet, help them to scale, go on that journey with them.
And do you find that you're pushing against an open door, or do you get resistance? How do you navigate that? I mean, I know you've got such a broad coalition of partners, but have you come across some who are saying, and particularly in the current environment, saying actually, no, we're dialing back on that, or what's the vibe, and how has that changed over the last 5 years?
So, like everyone on this panel, I've been in sustainability for a horribly long time. And most of the time, I felt like salmon swimming upstream. My last role as a CSO, I mean, it's hard. And so I felt very much a salmon swimming upstream, despite having, being able to make a lot of change happen. When I joined the Earthshot Prize, it actually felt suddenly like we were swimming all in the right direction. There was a really palpable sense of, no, we're going to make this happen. And we had people coming to us nonstop saying, we're in, let's do this. This is the right time, the right idea. What we've seen since, let's call it, the Trump presidency kicking off, is definitely a huge amount of fear and uncertainty entering the arena. And for companies in particular with the US base, I don't think I'm seeing companies stepping back from their commitment, but they may be stepping back from speaking and communicating about their commitment for very clear legal reasons, which we can like or not like, but are the reality. Here's what I see. In the face of those headwinds, the only thing that will penetrate those headwinds, in my view, is us doubling down on working as a movement with radical collaboration. And we absolutely need to come together and get behind the innovators and come hell or high water, speed them to scale.
Yep.
We have to use the forces that we have more effectively.
Yeah, that's very good. Thank you. Karen, do you want to talk about how you? I've got another question for you, but on that topic, while we're on it, do you want to just talk about how you're thinking about? I mean, you're a private company, so you helps.
Yes.
You're not in America. You have stores
we
in
have
America,
plenty
but
of stores.
so how are you thinking about that particular current issue that we're dealing with?
Well, I think, as you say, we're a private company. We're also one that's set up as a foundation. A lot of people don't know that about us, but that means we don't have shareholders chomping at the bit to get their sort of monthly or tertial return on investment. So we can think long term. We can think past political cycles and think in generations. Yeah. So, and we, we're talking another 80 years, and then, beyond 200 years. We want to be around for well beyond political year cycles. So we're very focused because of that. Either our money goes back into being invested in the company to make us better and be able to reach more of the many people around the world, or it goes to the IKEA Foundation, which is a separate foundation philanthropy that does a lot of great work with many NGOs around the world. So we can weather the storm, and we do tend to think long term, and we think, as Hannah said, we need to stay true to what we believe in and keep moving forward with agency and optimism. So many of the solutions exist today. So we just need to pull together and have the political will to get on with it. If you take renewable energy, it's never been more affordable. Yep. So even if you don't talk about the climate benefits of renewable, talk about the financial benefits. Yeah. Talk in a language that business leaders understand, and then we'll be able to move forward together, regardless of whether it happens to be good for the planet as well.
And that's optimistic that, people are maybe not saying as much as they have done in the past because for all sorts of reasons, but actually the work is still going on. So Karen, talking a little bit about being in a corporate environment and this kind of idea of ecosystem and change makers, how do you catalyze change within your teams? Yeah. And how do you spot the people who are in your organization, who may be, dynamic, wanting to kind of do something amazing on this space? How do you look after them and encourage them to do that within the corporate environment, rather than saying, oh, I'm going to do a startup and I'm going to go off and do my own thing on this topic and on this agenda?
We have a lot of people in my team and across the business who are activists by nature and super passionate, and they want to come in and work with a big corporation because our size and scale means that when we do something good, we can impact the lives of millions of people for the better, and we can also use our brand to bring other brands along with us as well. So like the work we do with UNHCR on refugees, helping refugees get skills for employment, we've managed to skill up 3,700 over the last 2 or 3 years. But beyond that, and it's a full program with language skills, training and everything, the fact that we are partnering with them means that we've had over 500 other companies join as well. So we take that seriously, and that on the ground, our co-workers who are working in the stores, in our distribution centres and so on, can work together with the refugees. They can choose social entrepreneur partnerships to work with as well too. But then sort of on a bigger scale, we have signed up to the Paris Agreement, of course, so we need to halve our emissions by 2030. And that means it has to go across everything we're doing in our operations. The choice of the materials in our products, so all the design and development teams working with the suppliers. So if you're a designer and you came in as a designer but not a sustainability expert, you're still working on sustainability because you're changing out materials to renewable or recycled ones. If you're working in a store talking to customers, making sure they know the benefits of using LED lights instead of old-fashioned lights to save them money as well as saving energy, saving water and so on as well. So there's things across the board that co-workers can do to really help everybody. And I think we've proven that you can grow and still reduce your carbon footprint. So since our baseline in 2016, we've got 30% reduction in CO2 emissions against a revenue increase of nearly 24%. And this attracts good talent. So it's both attraction and retention of great talent. We've made our country managers, who are retail managers, CSOs as well. And that is not tokenism. That is about them taking that job really seriously. And then they can drive the work out in the countries. Because obviously, I've got a small team. We're trying to integrate it throughout the business. They have sustainability ambassadors across the business as well. So everyone can touch sustainability across Inca.
And it's very encouraging because sometimes, as Hannah said, being the CSO is a really hard job, and you have, lots of influence, but maybe the budgets. I don't know how your CFO feels about, spending money on things that are maybe, more brand or more kind of, they're not driving the bottom line directly, although maybe you are proving that they are driving the bottom line. So how does that funding and that kind of tension between profit and your activities work?
Actually, it does make good business sense. Maybe it didn't at the start, but we can see now the return on investment's really good, particularly on the energy front. That's why we're nearly 97% renewable electricity across our operations now, with over 1 million solar panels on the roofs of our stores. When we had the financial energy crisis a couple of years ago, in the winter when it was really tough with energy prices, that helped many of our stores to be profitable, the fact that we had that clean energy available. And it also means our CFO, I work extremely closely with him. He sits on the Inca Investments Board along with myself and other members of our management team, our CEO as well. And we've committed to 7.5 billion euros in renewable energy until 2030, and we've invested so far 4.2 billion of that, and a 1 billion portfolio in circularity and recycling, and really helping innovators to move forward with that as well. So we invest in both very small companies and large businesses too. So we can see the financial return on the investment for sustainability.
So it's amazing to hear. And those numbers and the amount of people you're reaching in your stores across your teams globally, and having that purpose in the middle of your vision, your company vision, is extremely powerful and not to be underestimated. Just shifting, Hannah, to you to talk a bit about the Earthshot prize and the different, because you have 5 different prizes. Is there how do they sort of rank in terms of interest in them, and are you seeing changes? Because I'm feeling that ocean's a big thing at the moment, and I know you have one of those is the Earthshot prizes. But are you seeing shifts in the ecosystems and shifts of emphasis on kind of topics within this broader agenda?
Yeah, it's interesting. Interesting that this year is a big year on oceans for the Earthshot Prize, but also, there's the UN Oceans Conference a bit later. And the reason we picked focusing on the oceans this year is actually because we see that it's the least funded of all of our Earth shots.
Okay.
So we've doubled down in the areas where we think there's not enough funding, visibility, or support, and oceans is one. And yet, we see the most amazing innovations. Don't get me started on seaweed, or we'll never get out of this room. There's a later thing on seaweed. If anyone is in love with seaweed, like I am, see me later. But there's incredible innovation happening in oceans, but it's radically underfunded, and also falls into a ton of pitfalls around the legalities of ownership and etc. So I think oceans needs a lot more support. There's an underlying theme to all of these, which is they're all externalized from the financial systems. Yep. And so until you have a value on nature, you're going to really struggle with some of these nature-based solutions being scaled. Yep. Or being implemented, integrated into kind of global ecosystems. And I think that is a massive emergency for us collectively, and it gives you line of sight to COP30, but also means you need to spotlight some of the breakthrough work that's happening to really understand, well, what does it mean to put a value on nature? You can say it like up there in the clouds, but let's actually talk about what you mean by that and what the systems look like. I think that the thing that goes unnoticed, and I would say this is as much a narrative, and I'm going to pick up, Karen, on something you said, is I'm just going to call it for us, because we're in a little bubble here. I'm going to guess that 100% of the people in this room want to do something about fixing the planet. Is anyone here who denies that the planet needs fixing? Right. So that's a bit of a problem, right? So we like talking to ourselves, which is good. But my call to all of us is, let us change the narrative and go to where the narrative needs to be to bring others into this story. And with all of our work, what we have seen is that when we shift the narrative to being about creativity, innovation, entrepreneurship, jobs, and growth, and we reclaim the jobs and growth narrative for us, that is when we can actually bridge the political polarization and drive scale forward faster.
Yep.
Karen's sitting on all these amazing stories, and I know hundreds of companies like her that have stories about how there are green jobs being created, growth being created, it's creating resilience. We've all done the business case on this, and yet we single-handedly together fail to use that narrative in the big and claim that narrative. So that would be my call to action to all of us is like flip the narrative. And we're very intentional about doing that. We've built a big storytelling effort and really using that as a way to bring more into this and to more people into this, but also to say, no, this is unstoppable. This is happening. Yep. This is the driver of growth and jobs. This is anyone betting on us is betting on a better future for themselves right now.
Brilliant. Thank you. So that leads us nicely on for our last 3 minutes to just talk a bit about the future and what's exciting us, and kind of, I guess we're in this mid-decade. So 2030, Karen, what's it, as we look towards, how are you, what's exciting you the most? What do you see the paradigm shifts are going to be? Give us a bit of context on how you've got a 5-year plan, I'm sure. But how are you feeling about it? And it's lovely to hear Hannah's optimism, and I completely agree, because we are, as we say, in the bubble. But tell us from an Inca Group point of view.
I mean, the thing is, I share the optimism because I think we have so many opportunities. And then if I just talk about it through the customer's eyes, they want a better everyday life. They want to know what's in it for me, health and well-being for me and my family, saving me money, that better future that Hannah spoke about. We all should be betting on that. So if we can speak and use our size and scale, our stores as a canvas, our online channel as a canvas, to share with customers. I mean, even in France alone, we had 58 million visits to IKEA last year, and we go into the billions around the world of visits to our store and online. So if we can just change a small percentage of them to make more sustainable choices, so switching just a few times a week to plant-based foods, for example, you don't have to be a strict vegan, but that is the biggest thing Johan Rockström says that an individual can do. So we've made plant-based options, hopefully delicious, tasty and inspiring, but also a lower price than the meat-based options. We're introducing second-hand. So for me, the excitement, if you think 5 years out, the whole vision of truly circular paradigm shift that we need to make as a retailer and the whole supply chain as well, helping customers. We already do buyback. We're testing peer-to-peer second-hand platforms in 2 markets, in Norway and Spain right now. And we've got all the market country managers saying, when is it coming to us? Customers, in some markets, 20% of second-hand sales or more are IKEA products, so that people are seeing the value in it and they want to share that. So the spare parts, 25 million spare parts we gave away last year to help keep products in use for longer. So I'd like to scale up and communicate better and share the stories so customers can really understand how we can help them to keep their products second, third, fourth life and live more sustainably with affordability. It should not cost more to live sustainably.
Yep, amazing. That's amazing. Thank you, Karen. That's just incredible what you're doing. So we're running a bit out of time. So Hannah, give us a quick vision of the next 5 years for Earthshot.
Well, I think for Earthshot, but also for the movement that I call the movement of innovation that's happening around the world. And I think the thing we always forget in the face of the kind of constant headwinds and news that feels very gloomy is we forget what to ask ourselves, but what if we were exponential as a force for good? We forget that exponentiality isn't just about disaster scenarios because we've been trained in what the climate crisis looks like. We forget that exponential can be applied to all of you and your work and everybody out there, that in each of your solutions or in your one purchasing decision that you make that day is an unstoppable force for good, and it is happening. And so my goal and my hope for the next 5 years for all of us is that we're all doing everything we can to make this an exponential movement for good, each one of us.
Amazing. I think that's a very good place to leave it, because that idea of exponential and what we're doing here, just going out into the world. I mean, what you're doing, both of you, is extraordinary. I mean, this is amazing what is happening. And it's happening. It's not just we're talking about it. It is happening. So please, everyone, give a great round of applause for Hannah and Carolyn. Thank you so much.